Hello, Chris Green here with the Flood Insurance Guru. Today we're talking about flood maps, creating hidden disasters, giving people a sense of false security. So we're going to talk a little bit about that when it comes to flood maps and technology and things like that. You may have seen one of our other videos where we talked about the imaginary line when it comes to flood zones. Water doesn't know where to stop. Water doesn't know not to come into your house because you're not in a high-risk flood zone. Well, what happens is when people see what's called a flood zone X or a non-mandatory zone, they think, hey, we're good. We don't have to worry about flooding. Well, 30% of flooding actually occurs in non-mandatory zones. And so why is this? Why is this increasing? Hurricane Harvey, for example. Why did so many people not have flood insurance? Well, one reason was they were told they didn't have to have it because they weren't in a mandatory zone. So today we want to talk about a couple of things that are changing the risk for these non-mandatory zones. One of these is climate change. Climate change currently is not really considered when it comes to flood insurance maps. Areas that are starting to get a lot more rainfall, that's not taken into consideration. Now, it might be in the National Flood Insurance Program's new program called 2.0, where they do consider climate change or areas get a lot of rainfall where it could adjust the flood maps. Some other areas are rising sea levels. And as you know, the sea levels are continuing to rise. And so this really is not considered yet in flood insurance rate maps either. And so like you had a lot of area with Houston where you had a lot of inland flooding or coastal flooding in areas that normally didn't flood because of the size of the hurricane. Just like a few years ago with Hurricane Sandy. And so what happened is a lot of people were flooded that were not in mandatory zones. And a couple of the reasons was, it said the false security was given because they weren't in a mandatory zone. And so these two things, climate change and rising sea levels, have caused some serious exposures recently and are going to continue to create some serious exposures, especially as you get in these areas that have a lot of snowpack melt and you have a lot more rainfall coming, a lot more runoff. Because even though with the climate change you may get a lot more rainfall, you're also getting a lot more snow during the wintertime. Minnesota, Nebraska, Wisconsin, and Colorado all showed us that in 2018 and early 2019, where some of them had more than 300% more snowpack than they do in years past. So these are some exposures that are creating a hidden disaster when it comes to flood insurance. Remember, generally if you're in a flood zone X or the non-mandatory zone, you're actually getting the best option when it comes to flood insurance because of the preferred rating. Maybe that's through the private market, maybe that's through the National Flood Insurance Program. So, if you've got questions or concerns about, even though you might not be in a mandatory zone, what exactly are your flood exposures? Please reach out to us. FloodInsuranceGuru.com. Go to our YouTube and our Facebook channels, The Flood Insurance Guru, where we do our daily flood education videos. Remember, we have an educational background in flood mitigation, which means we can help you understand your flood risks, like this one right here, your flood insurance, and mitigating your property long-term to help you minimize flood premiums and flood exposures. Thank you.